back to Mr. Speller's Math Tutorials. It's me, AJ. We're going to continue with the outline of the bottom portion of the face. We're going to do the cheeks, the chin, we're going to do the mouth, and we're going to do the lines coming down from the eyes. So everything here in blue. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First things first, though, I noticed that there was a mistake here. This actually should be a negative 1.5. It didn't make a difference because it's with the absolute value function that we named. So even though we input a negative value, it's going to be evaluated as a positive. That's just how absolute value functions work. All right, but let's go ahead and let's start to begin working on the bottom of the nose and the top of the mouth. So we want some horizontal lines here, and let's take a look at these points. We see that we have y values of -3. And we have y values of -4. So we're going to create a list with -4 and then -3. Again, these are horizontal lines, so these need to be y equals problems. So whoops, let's make this lowercase. So y equals, we want -4 and we want a -3. So there are our horizontal lines. Now we need to limit the domain. We want both of those to go from have x value, small x value at -1 and a large x value at +1. So -1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1. And there we have the bottom of the nose and the top of the mouth. Now let's go ahead and work on the chin, where we're going to have another horizontal line. So here another is going to be a y equals problem. Let's take a look at the points here. We see that the y values here are -6. So we want y to be equal to -6, and let's take a look at what the domain should be. We want the domain to go from -1.5 to a +1.5. So curly braces. Again, this is domain, so we're going to say it has the x value or x variable, and then we want the +1.5. All right, and there is the chin. Let's do the left-hand side of the mouth and then the right-hand side. We'll start with the left-hand side. On the left hand side, we have these 2 points. Let's go ahead and use this point up here. I think this is a little bit easier. We want the y value to be -4. Well, we see the y value is -4 and the x value is -1. So y minus -4 in parentheses equal to the slope times x minus, and I'm sorry, I forgot what that was. The other point was the x value was also was a -1. So minus -1. And close that off. And now let's put in the slope. Well, I have the y value here of -4, and I'm going to subtract it from the other value, and I'm going to look at it in a minute. I see the x value here is at -1, and I'm going to subtract that off from the other value. So I placed in that point here. I need to place in the x and y here. So I need to place in the -6 in the numerator and -1.5 in the denominator. So -6 in parentheses, and then the -1.5 in parentheses. And then I want to limit this, the domain. So it's going from, let's see, the x value here is -1.5 and the x value here is -1. So let's do curly brace minus 1.5 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1. Whoops, -1. And let's curly brace there. All right, so that's that side. Let's go ahead and duplicate so that we can create the right hand side. All right, so let's just do home. All right, so here let's take a look at what these values look like to help us figure out what we need to do. All right, I see here that the x value went from a negative to a positive in both of them. So I need to make this -1 a +1 and this -1.5 a +1.5. So let's make that change here. So this -1.5 is now positive, and the 1 should also be positive. So let's do that. All right, and then I need to, and then, well, you know, let me see, what am I doing here? So the y values, -4 minus that, all right, and then 1 minus that. Okay, and then I'm using this top one. All right, so I just need to change I need to work on my my limits here. So this here needs to go from a +1 to a +1.5. So that's 1 and then +1.5, and then that's theirs in place. All right, Now let's go ahead and let's work on the left hand cheek, and then we're going to work on the right hand cheek. All right, let's get these values here. So let's try to see, well, they're both, either point is going to be just as complex as the other. Let's go ahead and let's just use this point up here at the top where the x value is -5 and the y value is the negative 3.5. So y minus, and I'm going to place a negative 3.5 is equal to m times x minus, and we said that value there for the x is going to be a -5. So I put that -5 in parentheses. All right, let's go ahead and put this slope on here. I have the y value here of -3.5 for this point that I picked to start, and the x value is -5. So let's take a look at the point down here. So here I have a y value of -6 and an x value of -1.5. So up here I'm going to subtract off a -6, and down here I'm going to subtract off a -1.5. All right, so now that's in place, and now I just need to I need to place in the domain, and the domain here, the smaller x value is -5, the larger x value is -1.5. So here, curly brace, -5 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1.5 or -1.5. All right, so that's that limited, and let's place in the curly brace. I want to duplicate that to do the right hand side. So up here to the gear, and then duplicate. And again, let's just take a look at what our numbers or what our points are looking like. So we see that, let's see, we see that it went from a -5 to a +5, and then it went from a -1.5 to a +1.5. So I just need to change those signs, and then I'll work on the domain. So I'm changing the 5 and the 1.5. All right, so I need a +5 here. I need a +1.5 here. +5 there. And I want to change the limit here. So the limit or the domain here is going to go from a -1.5 to a +5. So just basically just put these in opposite order because I'm on the right hand side. So this here to 5. All right. And now let's work on the side of the face. Let's do the left-hand side of the face and the right-hand side at the same time, because they're both going to be vertical lines, and they're both going to be the same length. So let's see, we have a x value here of -5 and an x value here of +5. So let's see, x equals, create the list of -5 comma +5, and let's look and see what the range is going to be. Well, we see the range here, it's as small as -3.5, and it's going as high as 1.333. So -3.5. So -3.5, we're doing the range, so it has to be less than or equal to y, less than or equal to, and that was 1.333, and then close that off. All right, so that's the left and right side, and now let's do what I'm going to call the teardrops from the eyes. So I need a line that's going to go, again, 2 more vertical lines, and we see the x value for both of these. So it's going to be -3 and a +3. So let's do that. X equals, again, I want to list -3 and a +3. And now let's see, again, they're going to be the same length. So I want these to go from -4.929 all the way up to -3. So -4.929 less than or equal to y, because it's the range, and that, I believe it was oops, was it -3? What was it? It was -1. So to -1. All right, so there we have our Autobot logo. Let's take a look at what it should look like. All right, let's come back here. Let's go ahead and let's turn off the graph here. So we want to turn off the grid lines, the X and Y. Let's go ahead and put it in projector mode so that we can see the colors a little bolder. All right, now let's take all these dots off. Let's do that there. down some more. Get rid of these dots here. Some more, these dots. Get rid of these last few dots here. Let's slide this over. All right, and here we have it. Here we have our Autobot insignia / logo. And with Desmos, we can, change the size here, move it around, and just go from there. All right, I hope that you enjoyed this this tutorial. I know parts of it were long, but I think it came out pretty good. So if you like it, please like it. And as always, thank you for watching.